with use of ketamine in the therapy, it happens faster. We can do it in talk therapy, but it will take longer time because we can get this other perspective that gives us the information where this is coming. We have this new sense of ourselves, and then we can take it forward into our life.
For those looking for a new way to take care of your mental health and the mental health of those you love, you cannot miss today's episode. We have Veronika Gold on, who's a family therapist and an expert on psychedelic-assisted therapy.
And for those of you that are considering using this type of treatment, as always, consult with your therapist and primary care doctor before taking any of the advice that we're going to be sharing during this episode.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate InvestHER Show. We believe that every woman has the birthright to achieve financial freedom and live life on her own terms. We take that really seriously. And it's not just about investing, but it's about their mindset too and their self-care. And that's why we're so excited to have Veronika Gold on our show today. Veronika, thank you so much for coming on today. And I'm so excited personally to have you on this show today to get into psychedelic treatments and ketamine and how it's so important for our mental health. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
So excited to be here, have you here. So I want to share something very personal with everyone listening. So, we are very authentic on the show, Veronika. And I don't think I've shared this before on our show. And I'm just going to share it with the two of you and whomever's listening. But I've struggled with anxiety for the last 20 years. And I honestly didn't even realize I struggled with anxiety until my therapist kind of brought it to my attention. I just thought I had worried thoughts. I thought I had ruminating thoughts. And quite honestly, I just thought that was normal until working with her and kind of uncovering some things for myself. And, as my family grew, my responsibilities grew, my business grew, and my kids got a little older, the anxiety increased as well for me. And so I really needed to do something, especially because it was affecting my sleep. Most, mornings, 3 a.m., the 2 a.m., 3 a.m. time frame, I'd be getting up. And I just wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. The worried thoughts and the rumination just would loop and loop and loop until I get up at 6. So my husband came home and said, "Hey, I heard about this new treatment called ketamine. And it's, something you might want to take a look at." And I said, "I'll do anything. I'll try anything." I really wanted to avoid medication. I don't think medication's bad, but I did want to do something that didn't require me to be reliant on medication just for my own beliefs and where I'm at. And so I did 6 treatments, Veronika, a few months ago, and it made such a transformation in my own life. And people that are around me, I know Andressa just goes, "Have you been doing ketamine?" Especially if I'm saying or doing something that's a little clear or what have you. So it was very impactful for me. And I wanted to have you on. The first question I have, we have a lot of questions for you, but what's the most profound gift that ketamine treatment especially has given people struggling with anxiety, depression, and other traumas?
Ketamine is really interesting medication or medicine, you could say, that is used in different ways. And so it can be used really in a medical model where people are looking to feel better. So we can say symptom reduction, that they feel anxious, they have depression, they, as you said, maybe insomnia. And so they go through the treatment and really can get help with these symptoms. But, beyond that, there is a possibility of using it in the context of psychotherapy where it can help people uncover, some underlying issues, the challenges that are contributing to the symptoms they have. And so not only they get symptom reduction, but they get lasting change in their life. And so we can see changes in relationships, changes in decisions, how people make their well-being, and relationship to themselves.
I think this is so, like many of you might be thinking, right? Is this a real estate show or what is this, right? So we stand for women to really getting to know themselves, live their best life. And self-care, I think mental health is a big item that is part of self-care. In order for you to live your best life, I think, many times we get used to how we have been thinking and living. And as you said, Liz, many people are like, well, isn't this normal?
Yeah.
So for you, Veronika, for the women that are listening, who does qualify, or if there is a qualification for this type of treatment? But if I am somebody that I'm like, I'm pretty like high performance and I'm doing well. I wouldn't say I am like troubled, right? But what would you say to that person that is listening, that is thinking, do I need that? How would I know if I do need that or not?
I think, like Liz said, a great example that she felt it was just part of her life, that she was dealing with her anxiety and that is how things are. And so sometimes we might not even know that there is kind of a different way of being, that we, kind of in having high functioning lives and doing great things and taking care of family, we don't realize that there might be things that could get better. And it could be, anxiety, it could be depression, it could be, maybe feeling like, like even though you have, everything going well, there is something missing in connection to meaning of one's life. And, for some people, it might be finding themselves stuck in the same patterns in relationships and conflicts. And so those are all things that, we could talk about in therapy. And the exciting possibility of ketamine and, other psychedelic therapies that are getting researched right now is that they work faster, that it, doesn't require to be years in weekly psychotherapy, that really these, medicines or catalysts support the process and the change quite rapidly. And, my hope is that people who are well could use these for, improving of their well-being. Unfortunately, that's not the way it is possible right now because of the way that these medications have to be prescribed. But there is a potential that we can feel better and kind of expand the way how we relate and know ourselves, and how we relate to things that happen in the past, and then of course that goes into the future.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you start to do the research on ketamine, because as soon as you hear psychedelic, people are like, "What did you do? Drugs? What? Where did you go? Where did you go to do this?" And I said, "Well, I went to a clinic. It was, it was through an IV. I was monitored by a doctor. I was monitored by nurses. So it was a very controlled environment, right? And so the question would be, in so many ways, why is ketamine so powerful, especially with people like the common anxiety, depression, PTSD are probably ones that I've heard a lot of people using this type of treatment for. Why is it so powerful? And I'm going to share my experience what I remember of when I was going through these moments. I've shared a lot of that with Andressa. But why is it so powerful? What about ketamine? It's been around forever. It's not a new thing, and it's used in hospitals still. It's given to children, obviously small doses. But why is it so powerful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so ketamine, has been originally approved for the use of anesthesia in surgeries, and it's a very safe medication. And so, that has been used from the 60s. But then, the physicians started to see when people were coming out of the anesthesia that they were reporting a lot of different experiences that were, like dreamlike experiences, or connection with something greater, or connecting with some challenges that they might have had in the past, and having like a different perspective on that. But also they've had, what you use the psychedelic experiences. And I think we can think of, that we are all still impacted by the war on drugs and misinformation that has been given about psychedelics, and thinking about it as a, drug that is kind of harmful to us. And so there is this potential with ketamine, that there is a variety of dosing, and, kind of the signature of it is that it gives us a little bit of space from ourselves. It gives us space from the anxiety or the depression or the traumas from the past, that we can look at it in kind of a little bit from a distance. So it's not that we are kind of numb to it, so sometimes it's also confusing when you say dissociative, because we can think of dissociation as something negative, but this is not a psychological dissociation that happens when we don't want to think about it. It's something that gives us space to look at, and have a distance from that feeling state.
Absolutely. I just to share my experience, I think I shared this with you, Andressa. I think I shared all my 6 sessions with Andressa of what I experienced. And for me, it was a little bit of a sense of a detachment. And I almost saw things almost like on a movie screen. I knew I was still there in the clinic, but it did feel like a little bit of a dissociation. And I did feel like I was almost like watching a movie, a lot of visual for me personally. And one of the most profound things was my first session after I had a heightened anxiety of them turning the lights down, giving me music, and then starting the IV. I freaked out, had a total breakdown. And then they came in to kind of calm my fear. After I moved through that, I'm like, well, yeah, I have some anxiety. So, but when I went through that and then that first experience, I actually saw like my 95-year-old self, and she was beautiful, very, very strong, very confident. Then I saw my 5-year-old self, and then I saw my grandmother. It was like this this experience that I went on, if that makes any sense. And there was a number of takeaways for me, reconnecting with who I really am and the greatness of who I am. I don't know if everyone has that experience. I haven't talked to too many people that have gone through ketamine, but that was very profound for me. But it was almost like a dissociation, almost saw it like on a movie theater, if that makes sense, where I wasn't there, but I saw it and I was experiencing it. Is that a common experience for people, other people that you've worked with?
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It sounds like a really powerful experience that you've had, and it is, one of the ways it looks. So people have really different experiences. So it's kind of also important to know that, we don't want to set expectation what it will be like, but there is a way that past memories and past experiences, positive and negative, can come up. So we can kind of reconnect with something that has been important in our life and that maybe we've forgotten. And then we can look at experiences that maybe we've left in the past, but suddenly we realize they're still impacting us. And we have this opportunity to, look at them differently or to process them. And, one of the guiding principles that we talk about is that, we are kind of moving towards. So we are, getting through the anxiety. So sometimes, like you said, you might feel more of what, you're coming in with. So it might be the fear or anxiety, or sadness, but it's almost like coming up for the transformation. So you can look at it, and because of the kind of distance of the ketamine, it doesn't feel as overwhelming. And then you have the support of the therapist, or, at some of the clinics, the nurse or the physician, and that they kind of encourage you to move through that. And that is a part of kind of letting that go or transforming or, bringing up. So you can really look at it, then, in the integration period. So the integration time is the time after the session. So it's not only about the experience with ketamine, but it is the part of, you're preparing for the treatment, you have the treatment. And then there is a time when you're integrating, making sense of the experience and kind of implementing the changes that came from that into your life. So I think that's kind of important to hold, that it's not just the ketamine, it's really the process that, that the ketamine is facilitating.
And I did not go yet to ketamine.
I keep encouraging you.
I can share, let's share her experience, but I can share how I received the experience and the impact from our team, right? So it's not that she changed to something else. I think that, and I don't know if I am using the correct words to describe it, but that is just my perception of what has happened, as if any filter or concern, as if her brain was super crystal clear. She was very crystal clear on what she was saying, the certainty. There was no self-doubting. It was really her best self. I felt that I was like, who is this freaking powerful woman that speaks her truth, unapologetic, shoot the decisions, does not question the decisions. And Liz is somebody that comes from like serving others, pleasing others. Not that she let go of that, but she did not compromise her own thoughts and wishes and desires anymore. She was super full of like who she was. And it's like, well, this is it. So if you guys like it, great. If you don't like it, well, right? Not in a sense that I'm imposing anything, but I was like, wow, I'm experienced my friend, my business partner in a different way. And that did not go away, like, oh, she didn't do that. I think that her commitment with continue working on herself, because that's what we do in our business and who we do. Like there was a list before and after ketamine. And I don't know if what I'm describing is just my opinion or if that's what usually happen with people, Veronika.
Yeah, that's, it's amazing. And it's great that you can reflect that back, that you kind of see the changes, because sometimes as also we change, we are not noticing all of it. And so you're reflecting this greater self-confidence and trust in herself. And that is kind of what we hope, that people can really connect with, their listeners or their kind of essence, and feel more confident that fears or self-doubts or these worries stop holding them back, and that the path for someone is really just the medication. For other people, it's processing some ways where maybe these beliefs about themselves that are not serving them, of maybe I'm not enough, or I don't deserve, or kind of not trusting ourselves in certain places, that we can look at where that came from and process it in the therapy and let it go. And so then, and I think that with use of the ketamine in the therapy, it happens faster. We can do it in talk therapy, but it will take longer time, because we can get this other perspective that, kind of it gives us the information where this is coming. And also it facilitates this sense of well-being that, kind of can stay. Like we have this new sense of ourselves in ourselves, and then we can take it forward into our life.
Yeah. And I can say safely that I have not had those, early morning, I used to call them like the rumination early morning sessions with myself. And it was so incredibly draining, right? Because you're like literally the amount of thinking I did before I actually got out of my bed, I was like tired before I could begin my day. That's the kind of impact it was having. I honestly haven't had one of those mornings. I don't even know if I can say I've had the same mornings at all. I don't think any morning has looked, I maybe like a 5% rumination, and then I cut it out, and kind of, so I move through it much faster. But it's gotten like so much better. And that's a gift to not like to be able to get out of your bed and like just start the day, feeling more yourself, versus tired of the thinking you just did for an hour and a half, which was a lot of mornings. Right. So the question I have for you too is it's a muscle, and what other work, and I can share what I've done, but what other work, because it's not like this ketamine treatment and then you just go back to your life and never do. It's like a muscle, right? There's other things, like you said, the integration, that's really important. What have you seen other folks that you've worked with do to continue the process, right? To continue the work, in addition to obviously, maybe seeing someone or other things they could be doing. But what other like best practices have you seen to continue that path for people? I'm curious.
Yes, I think working with a therapist while you're getting the treatment is really important. Some clinics, and the way how I work is that, the therapist is with you during the session. So the psychotherapy actually happens while you are receiving the ketamine. And, but if you do it that way, or if you work, in a way that, or going to an IV clinic, it's important to have somebody you can work with, because for some people it's really smooth and kind of as you're describing, and for some people it will bring up challenges. So you can feel worse before you actually feel better. And so, I think it's just important to say, because it's, when we hear these kind of success stories, we think like, that's good, how it looked like for everybody. And for people, maybe there is some experience from the past that wasn't fully processed, and then it comes up more into the consciousness. And so it's important to have somebody that, can work through that with you. So it's, psychotherapy, but all practices that, we know are helpful, like having a meditation practice, or, maybe taking a little more time of being with oneself, if it's, being in nature, or, taking time to journal. It's just a way to stay connected to the experience, because we can have those experiences and then kind of, go back into the busy life and forget about them. So, whatever way, whatever practice is to stay connected to the work and to the results that you're getting. And oftentimes we see that people kind of change and add things that are helpful to them in their life, that it really comes from them. So somebody will be in the treatment and say, I actually really want to do more yoga, or maybe I need to see certain friends, or I need to, kind of that these changes come from within. And so that's, another way that, I really believe, and what I think is beautiful about it is that we have this inner intelligence. We call it the inner healing intelligence, or organismic intelligence, or kind of self, that, when we create these optimal conditions, which, is in the ketamine experience, there will be the safe environment, the relationship with the doctor or the therapist, there is a music, there is invitation for the internal focus. And then we are waiting what, comes up for the person. So every person has a different thing that will come up. And so we are, enhancing and supporting this trust in oneself. And so that's why the practices that people will do will be different. That someone might come out and be like, I wanted to take singing classes for many, many years, and I just was busy with other things, and that's what I need to do. And suddenly they connect to their voice and they feel like, I can speak better. I had anxiety about speaking, and now I'm connecting to my voice. So that, might look differently for different people as we're listening to this inner knowing, this inner intelligence that we all have.
Yeah. I for me, that listening to the music when I was in the session, and then listening to that music after, and I have listened to it, it's like you step right back into those feelings. Like, you go to these, people go to weekends, they go to these personal growth weekends, and then they lose some of that energy, that experience. It's the same kind of thing where you're reconnecting by the music that you were listening to, literally. And I've been able to step back into not that exact experience, but it's certainly helped, reconnect me, right? Reconnect to some of the pieces that I got from it. There's a lot of misconceptions though, too, Veronika. I know I've lived my life by kind of pushing the envelope and doing things, quite honestly, that were off the beaten path. So doing ketamine treatments was not something that I'm like, oh, what are people going to think? I've been doing that my whole life. So I wasn't too worried about that from that perspective, but it is different. And it is something that's kind of up and coming, from the perspective of treatment. And there's a lot of misconceptions out there. What would you say are the biggest misconceptions? And then how people listening can move through that, especially if it's them or if someone that they love, that something like this could be really, really helpful for. What are those misconceptions and how do they move through them?
Some of the ways that we are impacted by the misinformation, war on drugs, that, it's doing drugs being, it's something addictive. So it's interesting because ketamine has been even used for the treatment of addictions. So that you would think like you're using a drug, but it's actually can help people with when they're struggling with addiction. There is also a misconception that it is a magic bullet, that it's something that's going to really help us. And so we need to understand that it requires some work when, and the more, you're engaged in the work, the better benefit you get. And so I love what you said about, listening to the playlist from the session after, because that's one of the integration recommendations. And, not everyone does that. So that, it's important, like the more you engage in the process, the more you get out of it. People can be scared of the psychedelic experience. And, it's, I think, important to really research the place you're going to go to, the person you're going to work with, that they have a good reputation, that they have, mental health professionals available, or, are in the sessions, and, that you feel really prepared to the process that you're going to step into. because there are clinics that, mail you ketamine to do it at home. And I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend doing it without a therapist, because that's where people can have bad experiences. And so kind of these misconceptions, they're, some based on real experiences that people had, but usually was because there wasn't a safe setting, or, the safe environment, or there wasn't enough assessment that they are good candidates for this treatment. So there are, some exclusion criteria, and so you really want to feel that you feel kind of safe and comfortable going in. Some people have ketamine has been used in veterinary clinics. So some people have these kind of associations that, that it's unsafe or overwhelming for people. And again, it really is all about the preparation, the safety, and that, there is a variety from the low doses where you just can feel a little more relaxed and opened up to, the higher doses that, again, when done in a safe setting, can be really helpful for people. I've worked with a lot of people, for example, with end of life anxiety, or who are struggling with deep grief, and that it's not something that they have a long-standing mental health issue, but that something really difficult is happening in their life, and that working in this way was really helpful in providing them support and different perspective as they were working through those moments. Yeah, so those are some I'm thinking about.
Yeah. No, that's a great perspective. And I just want to share that in the show notes, I'm going to add the clinic that I went to that was in New Jersey. We have a lot of listeners everywhere in the world, but I know we do have a lot in the tri-state area, and they just couldn't do enough for me. I had such a fantastic experience there. I felt very taken care of, hands down. So I know that could be something that's really important when people are doing something new. There's a level of uncertainty. We want to feel safe, and we want to feel kind of taken care of, and, make sure that we're in a safe environment. So I'll add that in the show notes, the place that I went to. It's in Howell, New Jersey. Veronika, this has been great. And I really appreciate the color that you've shared around this really important treatment. I really like this topic a lot, just because I like to share what's coming up for me and my experiences, but just appreciate you being on today. And where can our listeners learn more about you and the work that you're involved in?
I work in a clinic called Polaris Insight Center. I'm a co-founder of that clinic. It's in San Francisco, California, in the Bay Area. And that's where we provide treatments. We also provide online treatments, but only for people in California. So those in California can find me and, can email me there, Veronika@polarisinsight.com. And the website is polarisinsight.com.
Awesome. All this information you guys can find on our show notes. Now we're going to transition to our fabulous 3 question. The first one, Veronika, is what's the most transformational book you ever read?
There's so many, so it's hard to say one book. If we are talking about non-ordinary states of consciousness, I have enjoyed books from Stan Grof, who's written so much about these states, and they have been transformational for my work as a psychotherapist.
What's the most powerful routine that you do to create a financially free and balanced life, whatever balance means to you?
Yeah, so for me, it's being in nature to balance, because I'm really busy and have full days. So taking walk in the morning in the forest close to where I live, that's what helps me the most.
And last question, which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
Again, I would go to my teachers, that I think these works of working with psychedelics are, they're the newest thing, but there are long traditions with lineages. And so my teachers in the mdma-assisted therapy, Marcela Otalora and Annie Midhofer, have been really impactful in my life.
Veronika, thanks again so much for being on our show, and thanks for sharing your wisdom with our community.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.